Welcome into Mississippi State Bulldogs Live here on the Voice of College Football Network, the 69th edition of Mississippi State Bulldogs Live. It's a really nice episode. We've done a lot more than 69 shows. It's just that the others count as call-in shows, whereas this is more the live. So, but hey, 69 for Mississippi State Bulldogs Live. Very nice. But happy to be here. Andrew Miller and Alex Fazell on a Monday evening. Got a great show in store. We're going to wrap up our positional previews for the 2026 season, taking a look at the Bulldogs secondary. So we'll break down the corners and the safeties going into 2026. We have already said we're not going to really do anything with special teams. No offense to that third of the game, all important. But there's just not a lot to say regarding the Bulldogs special teams going into the season. So we'll talk about the Bulldogs secondary, and we expect we should have time. We're going to do some more positional previews. Last week, doing 4 teams that needed worthy discussion in one show was a lot. So what we're going to try to do is we'll take a look at Vanderbilt and Auburn. Start the month of November, a couple pivotal games for Mississippi State. And then later in the week, we're not going to have much of a breakdown for Tennessee Tech, although it is worth saying that's a team that won 11 games last year, is a good program in the FCS. So we'll shout them out. We'll maybe highlight a few things, but we're also going to talk a lot about the Egg Bowl on Thursday. Obviously, always an important game, but maybe a little bit of a deeper look at the Rebels and how can Mississippi State get back to winning in that series. So that's kind of the plan for the week. But again, today, a couple Vanderbilt and Auburn on the opponent previews, as well as the positional stuff. But should be a fun show. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. If you could leave us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're not already, have those notifications turned on so you know when we go live or whenever there's new content posted to the channel. Comment down below, all that fun stuff, and tell all your friends and family about what we're doing here at Mississippi State Live. If they're Bulldog fans, bring them on. We want to have them be a part of the action. Tell them they can catch the show Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. Thursdays, typically the call-in show. We'll see if we get that back rolling soon. Yeah, we're over 200 subscribers. Shout out to y'all for getting us there. Really appreciate that. But Alex, we're back. We did have football on Thursday, so football is back.
Yeah, not the type of football that we like, but any football is I can't complain. I was watching European football with host board over the summer and CFL football, so I can't really complain. Football is like 3 weeks until week 0, 2 weeks, so 3 more Saturdays. Yeah, 3 more Saturdays to week 0, so it'll be here before we know it. I mean, I got September 5th circled, so but I'm gonna still enjoy that week 0 slate.
Absolutely. Look, don't dog the Hall of Fame game. I mean, James King scored a touchdown out the last play of the game to win it for Carolina. That was actually, I was not paying close attention, but it was actually a good football game.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch.
Both quarterbacks looked competent.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch just like a 30-minute highlight reel. But I mean, Carson Beck looked competent. I mean, I don't expect him to be. I don't know. We may see him as a starter, but I don't expect his career. I think he'd have a decent career. I think he's like a Davis Mills types of quarterback. But I mean, I don't want to get too much into Carson Beck.
I think it was either Brandon Walker or one of the other Barstool guys on their Wake Up Barstool show. They were talking about that game, and I just saw the clip on social media, and they one of them mentioned Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck ends up being a starter in the NFL. We kind of dog on him a lot, but he wasn't a bad college quarterback. I agree that he gets unfairly dogged on largely because he looks dopey, and that's kind of the biggest thing. And look, his arm talent is nothing impressive. So I agree he's a much better quarterback than people give him credit for. I do think he will make a career in the NFL. I think he's going to be a starter. I think he's one of those guys that lasts as a backup where you kind of trust him to go in. And even though he had those self-destructive games, both at Georgia and Miami, like the Louisville game last year was really rough for him.
Yeah.
Even with that in mind, I think typically he's a guy that can go in and just run an offense and handle pro-style type stuff. But I don't know that he's got the upside to ever be a starter. But then again, he's playing for the Cardinals, so there's a good chance he probably will end up starting some football games this season.
So we'll definitely know what he looks like as for an extended stretch of time with the Cardinals.
Hand it off to Jeremiah Love. Do a lot of handing it off to Jeremiah Love behind an offensive line that's not very good. That's what's going to be happening there. Spring practice, my God. And it's not even fall camp either. Preseason camp for Mississippi State, a few days into it now. look, we don't have a lot of big updates. I think one of the bigger things we've heard over the past couple of days, Aiden Williams getting a lot of buzz, that it's not just highlight reels in practice. There's a lot of murmurs that, hey, man, he's having a good preseason camp and is really making a push. And look, I tweeted it out, and I said, look, this is not me reacting to a highlight on all of these guys are going to have a highlight catch at some point in practice. I've had the thought for a while. I think Aiden Williams could be a more of an impact guy than I think State fans are giving him credit for. I think I won't dive into it now because it'll take me too long to explain, but I think there's reasons why you didn't see him break out last year that are not as cut and dry as, well, he's just not a very good player. He's a practice merchant. I think there were some elements to that State offense that just didn't help him out that I think this year could be a little bit better suited to maximize his ability. And look, he's kind of been a forgotten man when we talk about Bulldog receivers, but I think there's a chance he has a nice year. I'm not saying he's going to go out and be a guy that has 800 plus yards and is catching 50 passes, but could he be a guy that gets over 500 and has 4 or 5 touchdowns when we look up? I think that's possible, and he's going to have a few State receivers to do that this year, but that'd be a really nice year for Williams if he can have that type of a season.
Yeah, for sure. This is probably going to be a game where it's like we're going to really need him to make a play, and he's going to come up big for us, especially being that big body. Not really too many. Well, there are. I mean, some of the younger guys are bigger, but not many of those top 6, 7 receivers or have the body type that he has. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a role for him in this offense, and I'm excited to see his, whatever it looks like, his contributions to this new talented offense with K1.
Also with receivers, continue to hear Zion Ragens making a lot of noise. Grayson Harris getting a lot of buzz. This was posted on 2 separate message boards. I know had a conversation, though, about Marquise Johnson and kind of his role for the season. Like it was like the same discussion on it happened on Gene's page, and then it was also over on 3, or it was either on 3 or 1878. It got discussed multiple places. I think it was on 3, and it was like, hey, we're just not hearing anything about this guy. Like, this is our top transfer this offseason. And I think every time, like, Camario talks about the receivers, Marquise Johnson comes up. Like, I imagine he's a guy that's very clearly a part of that group. But I would also say, like, everything you hear from the coaches stands out as well. And in terms of the guys who are flashing, that stands out as well. It sounds like some of those other guys have moved ahead, but I think he's going to have a role. And look, would it be disappointing if you found out like that's a guy that you spent money on and he's not a big impact guy? Sure. But what I've said before is, 1, you're always going to have like guys like that in the portal era. That's just the reality of it. 2, like, I think if State's receivers are awesome, you're just not going to care.
Yeah. It is a deep receiving room. So, that is disappointing. I don't like having money on the bench or money in a less role, but that just means the other guys stepped up. Only thing other interesting I saw, it was kind of small, but I remember looking back on the first few days, it was there was also Ant Evans, who else? Colin Wilson and Ragens. They was handling like punt return duties, but then I saw back again, and those same names were still there, but Braylon Womack was in the punt return duties as well. So that was, that was something just interesting that just, caught my eye.
Everyone has talked. We're going to talk about Braylon Womack today when we talk about the Bulldog safeties. Like, his athleticism is what stands out. That's a guy that, in theory, could have developed as a college receiver. Was very clearly a safety. It was not listed as an athlete coming out. He was a safety prospect coming out of high school, but a guy that was a very good receiver, and if he wanted to develop that side of the ball, could, and was effective as a return man, just effective with the ball in his hands. So if Mississippi State's looking to find ways to make an impact there, like, for sure, getting him involved as a punt returner could definitely be a possibility for him early on in his career. Sounds like Will Whitson having the type of camp that you want to see from him. If he be that guy that's a difference maker. A lot of I think we mentioned this last week, but Diesel Moy, we heard he's gotten in better shape, but then a lot of people were like, oh yeah, no, he's moving right now in a way that last year the role as a near 350-pounder was you're here to plug the interior gaps, let everybody else go to work. And look, hey, having guys like that on your team are valuable for sure, but it sounds like he's really stepped up and could have an expanded role within this defense. Continue to hear that Jet Jefferson he is the guy. I think you can at this point pencil it in. I would say Jet Jefferson is your starting corner opposite of Kelly Jones. And it doesn't just sound like by default. It sounds like, no, he's going out making plays, which would be very good. We know what Kelly can do. If you've got a quality starting corner opposite of him as well, that's going to do a ton for what this defense can be. So, the starting offensive line, there's been so much talk about their shuffling guys around and finding different roles, but everyone who has been there has been like the top 5 have been the same top 5 that you saw in spring. Well, I think that group is still clearly locked in, and then it's just figuring out where everybody else can play. We've heard a lot about the competition. I definitely think there is competition, but I think you're also getting some guys clearly rising to the top and going out and grabbing starting roles.
Yeah, I just read that State 1878 article they did on Shumpert Perkins, and just seeing his journey and his rise, that he was always athletic. He kind of he was getting some very impressive comps to like former JUCO offensive linemen that we had that maybe took them a little while, but they became great contributors, like Tyree Phillips and then my old teammate Martinez Rankin. So if he can live up to that hype, that's going to be big.
Absolutely. No, they need somebody at least at one of those tackle spots to really lock down that side of the ball. So we'll continue to see how things go throughout the rest of spring. Look, obviously, we're not there in person, so we're not out there observing things. And obviously, with the way Levy does things, it's not like they have the most media access in the world. They kind of get to only see a few periods of what's going on. But a lot of positive murmurs coming out more and more. And I there's part of me that's mad, getting annoyed at myself. Not mad, but getting annoyed just in that, am I going to fall for it again? Like, am I going to be a winner of the Fell For It Again award? And telling myself this team's going to be pretty fun, especially when I go online and just like State fans are going at it with a lot of people right now who are taking issue with various things. The projection for MSU. I'll admit, and I referenced Brandon Walker earlier. I started watching Brandon's new show. I still have to go back and watch the second episode he did with Fornelli. But his very first episode, he told college football fans, stop making lists. Like, stop doing this whole thing where because somebody said something that wasn't glowing about your team, well, you're on the list now, so I can throw it back in your face when you're wrong. I'm going to admit I've started a list for Mississippi State, which is I'm not one to do because I don't like going into – it's not even about going and throwing it back at somebody mentions. I'm not going to do that. Especially because, look, I would love for this show to grow to a point where we can get people like that on here. And me going and being a jerk to someone because they weren't high on my team is a stupid thing to do if we're trying to grow this channel. I'm not going to do that. But I do want to keep note of, like, man, like, if maybe they were all right. We might look up at the end of the year and the State sucked and they were all right.
Yeah.
But if they all got it wrong, I want to – what were y'all – because there's part of me that looks at this team and it's like, I don't get where y'all are coming from where you're like, there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that that's still the takeaway.
My biggest gripe really is just like you'll have people that'll be like, you look at this Mississippi State team, they've had a lot of good transfers. They've gotten bigger in the D-line, bigger in the O-line. Looks everything coming out to set and prove. Yeah, I think they're going to go 2-8 or 2-10. It's like that's my biggest gripe. Like either I feel like you need to stay on one side or stay on the other. But there are some people they've been fans of Levy and then fans of Kamario Taylor and his potential ever since last season. So we just gotta wait till the season starts to September. Really, Minnesota game after the Minnesota game. If it goes how we both think it'll go, I think that's when people will realize, okay, this team's for real.
Just like an example, and where it gets frustrating is when you can tell, like their preconceived notions Mississippi State's not going to be very good. So we're just not going to spend a lot of time really diving into the team. That's what annoys me. And for example, like the Solid Verbal, and I listen to the Solid Verbal on or off. I think it's a really good show. Those guys do a great job, and they're very entertaining and very nice guys as far as I can tell. So it's not here to like bash them, but like they were doing part one of their SEC preview. And part one, they tier the teams and they just give like a quick snippet on each, and then later episodes they give a deeper dive at each team. Now they're doing this for quite literally all of FBS because they did like G5 episodes and now they're going through every conference. So that's a lot of teams for two guys to have to dive into. I understand you're going to miss things. I understand you're not going to have a full 100% picture of every team. I get it. But like they were talking about the team and they were like, like Kamario Taylor, that's exciting potential, like bringing Zach Arnett back and what that can mean for the defense. And then, but the two things that got me. One, they referenced, but they don't have a lot back this year. And that is purely off of like they reference Bill Connolly's returning production a lot, which I reference it. And I like Bill Connolly. I like the stuff he does.
Mm-hmm.
Returning production does not always tell you the full story over what you have coming back versus what you lost. It's better than using the returning starters metric because it dives into it more. But like a team like Mississippi State, well, they don't have a lot of returning production. It's like, okay, yeah, because the starting quarterback who is not as good as the quarterback that they're starting this year is gone. Like, yes, they're losing a 1,000-yard receiver. That's a big loss. Receiver is like the least of their concerns. Yes, they're losing a bunch of offensive line starts. That offensive line was hot garbage last year. They were going to overturn that group no matter what. And like there's a good number of tackles gone in the secondary from last year by replacement level safeties. No offense to those guys. I think some of them are solid players. Yeah. They're kind of replacement level pieces coming in. Like, so you look at Mississippi State, oh, they don't have a lot of returning production. And it's like, yeah, but like they didn't lose, like they lost really one truly meaningful player. And it's at the position that this offense, you have zero concern over stepping in. So like that point got to me. And then the other, and I think he was just making a point. I don't think he was literally saying State has none of this, but he was talking about, he actually said, like, I could be persuaded into liking Mississippi State quite a bit, but like I need to see guys on defense that are not, just a guy out there and guys who are difference makers. I'm like, so does it mean there's a pass rusher who emerges? Does it mean there's some guys at linebacker who turn into these game wreckers? And then he said, does it mean like they find a guy at cornerback and a guy at safety who like attracts all this gravity towards him? And I'm like, brother, Kelly Jones and Isaac Smith exist. They have that. Like those are like the two names. Like if you're going to know names on the team, you should know at least Kelly Jones and Isaac Smith.
Yeah, at least Kelly Jones.
At least Kelly, who just got named an All-American preseason by On3.
Yeah.
Like, which again, can't even be first team All-SEC by SEC Media, but it's going to be an All-American by On3.
Yeah, and Sports Illustrated just released their early 2027 mock, and he's a first rounder, like a top 15 pick.
Not first team All-SEC though. Not
to the Jets, to Aaron Glenn and the Jets.
Hey, I mean, I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to be there much longer, but like, hey, I mean, good DB.
Yeah,
I liked Aaron Glenn when he was on the Saints as an assistant coach. He can come back. Anyway, like, it's just stuff like that. I've said this for a few years now. Like, it is annoying. Like, the offseason as a Mississippi State fan, if you're someone who likes to consume content that is not just Mississippi State specific, has been agonizing for a few years now because really the only time your team comes up is either to say, yeah, they're just not going to be very good, or when they're talking about another team and trying to figure out how many games they're going to win, and they say, okay, Mississippi State, that's a win. Yeah. Like that's the only time Mississippi State gets said. So, but again, they're not going to change that until they start winning games. And I get like that. Some people still have to see it to believe it. I totally get that. Comment here from Trey Clark. I don't think people realize how much of a game wrecker Whitson was in the first 6 quarters last year. D-line of the week versus USM and destroyed Arizona State. Go watch that film. He destroyed them up front. No, Whitson was awesome. And like the burst and explosion that he showed off the line, that's a guy, man. If he's back to – they're saying he's having a great camp. And if he's the guy that he showed to start last season throughout the whole year, he's going to be that difference maker. Now, the caveat, and this is what I have said on this, what he did against Southern Miss and then for one half against an Arizona State team that was just okay up front, there's no way of guaranteeing that's what he would have been in SEC play. I'm not trying to dampen people's expectations for Whitson because it sounds like he's having a great camp. I think he's going to have a great year. But we don't fully know. But, yeah, man, if he's fully healthy and he's that type of guy and stays healthy, could be the piece they need up front for sure.
Yeah, the one positive for – that I can look into that with the SEC players, like the majority of the teams, I think even Texas, I think the only 2 teams that we play that are really like confident in their offensive line is OU and Mizzou. So, I mean, especially the interior. So, I mean, that's another big thing you got to watch out. Everybody in the SEC is a big trend. We're going to talk about today with these 2 teams that everybody has O-line questions. So, there's another thing.
Yeah, I see. I didn't even think about that. Like, honestly, you can make a case none of them are fully settled.
Yeah, I mean, you could, because Texas, they have O-line questions. I mean, but
Oklahoma, like people expect that group to be a whole lot better. I know they've got a young guy at tackle that like they're expecting. He might take a massive jump and be awesome. But like like OU, like you're banking on like second year improvement for a lot of guys who were kind of iffy last year.
Yeah.
Like Texas, I think it sounds like the Western Kentucky dude they brought in late. I think I just recently heard he's been having an awesome camp.
Mm-hmm.
He's been the guy they needed him to be. So if that's the case, they're probably shored up. But like, yeah, to your point, I mean, like Minnesota and Missouri are two teams that like bring back a lot on the line, but Minnesota's line was not very good.
No.
Missouri is going to be without one of their tackles, a guy that they were going to count on. So, hey, Whitson, like go put him up against that guy and see how that goes. So maybe to your point, it could be that he's able to take advantage of some groups that aren't great up front. And yeah, there's some questionable offensive lines on that Bulldog schedule for sure. All right. Let's get into positional previews 20 minutes down to the show. We always do this. Start talking about it's always my fault. We always start talking about other things because I decided to go off on some tangent. Mississippi State's cornerbacks. So last year, this was a position that going into the season, there was no bigger question mark for MSU than what they had at corner. You had lost Bryce Pollock, who was a genuinely good corner for them that just was put in impossible situations in 2024 because of how bad everything else around him was. One of the few guys on that defense that you didn't want to see hit the portal. And then you didn't bring any clear options behind him. You know, you have, I think Javen Williams comes over from Kennesaw State. You have Dwight Lewis comes up from the NAIA ranks. And I think there may have been one other guy.
Diego Broomfield. I don't know if he was last year from Memphis.
He was there in 24.
But
again, a Memphis guy who he had been banged up. He only played like 4 games in 24. So you got a Memphis guy they're talking about counting on. And it's like, holy crap. Like, well, what are they going to be at corner? Like, you kind of figured, okay, Kelly Jones is going to be a starter for them by default. Like, he has to be the guy. Because Kelly, keep in mind, had not proven this going into 2024. He had a good Egg Bowl. He had played well in the Egg Bowl, got thrown out a few times in that game and stepped up big in the 2024 Egg Bowl. But that was kind of it because the rest of the season that when he got in was kind of up and down.
Yeah.
We knew he was going to be one of the starters, but you didn't know what you had opposite of him. You didn't know if Kelly was going to be a guy. Well, Kelly, obviously, we see what he became. A all-SEC caliber player, one of the top corners in the SEC, and had he declared for the NFL draft, probably could have been a day 2 pick just based on the overall athletic traits and the potential that are there. Obviously, now you've got him coming back for another season, as we'll talk about more here just in a sec. The other side of the other cornerback spot, I remember coming out of the Southern Miss game, a couple of those guys made some big plays. I was like, okay, like we might have something at corner. I think through the first few weeks of the season, you felt like State's number 2 corners was actually pretty solid. As the year went along, you realized, they just played a lot of really bad passing attacks.
Yeah.
And once they started facing more teams that could throw on them a little bit, and I think even the Tennessee game, they got picked on some in that game. As the year went along, it became very clear, okay, nobody's going to throw at Kelly Jones, but they will happily throw to the other side of the field and will do so with a lot of success.
Yeah.
The Egg Bowl especially, State just got terrorized at the number 2 corner spot all day. And that's a spot that had to be shored up going into this offseason. And there were big questions. There were questions about bringing back Corey Bell, but you get Kelly Jones back. You have your number 1 guy, and Alex, as we'll talk about here in a bit, they did a really nice job with the pieces they brought in around him to really upgrade that room.
Yeah, for sure. The transfers, I mean, he came in transferred as a corner, but I'm pretty sure he got moved to safety, Quentin Taylor. But Caleb Singleton, Jamrock Grimsley, which, we'll talk about him, but he was still a blue chip player. And then, Jet Jefferson, he was a JUCO guy, highly rated JUCO guy, got banged up, but there was still hype around him coming out of last year. And then it just seems like every coach that talks about him has been nothing but just praise. He's been mentioned as a natural cover corner. So, I think at this point we can pencil him in as a starter. And then we have some younger guys, Jalen Antoine, Dreote, and then an interesting younger guy. Well, Kyle Johnson, too, was also a blue chip guy out of Louisiana, 4-star. He chose us. It was between us, Houston and Ole Miss, another really talented younger player. And then Terrell Johnson, who came to a Big Dog camp and was 6'2", 185. I think he ran a 4.4, 4.3. He was kind of one of those guys where, like, State does this a lot where they'll bring a guy probably at a smaller school. He comes up, has a really good camp. State's first offer was his first major offer. And then he had a great senior season. Then he got a lot of hype at the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game. So, yeah, I think they did a really good job at just either getting quality transfer guys, people that's played. I mean, Caleb Singleton from Syracuse, he played in 6 games. And then I'm missing the Iowa State guy who started 6 games at Iowa State and had 5 PDs.
Quentin Taylor.
Was it? Oh, it was Quentin Taylor. Okay, yeah. Never mind. But yeah, Terrell Johnson's another intriguing guy. But he's still young. Mississippi Alabama. He really impressed the Mississippi Alabama game. But yeah, they did a really good job of attacking that position and shoring it up. And then if Jet Johnson's as good as the hype's been saying, I think he's going to be really big for this defense because everybody knows about Kelly Jones and what he showed on film last year. So especially in the beginning of the year, I think people are going to be attacking Jet Jefferson.
Yeah, so again, you have Kelly on one side there. That locks down one side of the field. You got, a potential first-round pick at corner protecting one side. Just obviously a freak athlete, 6'4", 195, runs a legit 4.4, and just blankets receivers. I've seen some scouting stuff that he does have some technique things he definitely needs to work on, which, again, this is a guy that was playing like safety in high school, and most people thought would have to play safety at the next level because they're like, there's no way that guy's going to have the bend necessary to play corner. But he's worked on that tremendously and has gotten a whole lot better. Still has some things to clean up, which is the ultimate reason he's coming back for another year. And if Kelly does have a season like he did this past year, he will be a first-round pick. There's no doubt about that. Having that protecting one side of the field is massive for you because just so many things you can do coverage-wise where you can just tell him you've got that side of the field. Even in zone looks, it's not just we can play man coverage because we got Kelly Jones. You can play zone and keep Kelly in man on all those plays. Not that you want to do that to him all day, but he has that capability. So it just opens up a lot for what you're able to do defensively. And we think about a Zach Arnett defense and how aggressive that they want to play. Like sometimes those corners are going to be put on islands. Even though it's a 3-3-5 and you've got those guys at safety that can help cover things up over top, and sometimes you can get into those drop 8 looks. The way Arnett plays it, it's a 3-3-5, but it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of aggressive coverage where your corners are kind of put on an island. Kelly Jones gives you a guy to handle that. And then opposite, as you mentioned, it sounds like it's going to be Jet Jefferson, and Joshua Wright commented in. Yeah, Jet seems the corner opposite of Kelly. He's had this is now, we were talking about last year earlier, goes into last year, and in the preseason camp, we're hearing a lot about him. Like, hey, this guy's having a good camp. I think he's going to be a good player for us. Gets banged up, has to take a red shirt, can't really contribute for state last year. We heard the same thing throughout spring this year once he was healthy again. Like, hey, he looks really good. And I think he was with the first team unit in the spring game. You get into fall, and again, it's the same. It's off preseason. It's the same thing. He's been really, really good for them and has clearly established himself, as you mentioned, like a natural cover player in the words of Zach Arnett. That's your number 2. And again, if you've got a guy opposite of Kelly that can just be a good, solid player, you're right. He's going to be attacked. No doubt. They're not going to throw at Kelly Jones. But if you got both sides of the field protected like that, that immediately gives you one of the better cornerback duos in the SEC. We can't say that just yet because we got to see Jet Jefferson play, but the potential is there for this to be one of the top duos within the league, which is something, hey, Mississippi State's had before plenty of times. This has obviously been a school that's produced a lot of great corners. You're going to produce another one with Kelly Jones, but it looks like you're going to have a great duo there alongside it. You mentioned some of the other guys in that room. Caleb Singleton was the highest rated signee for Syracuse a season ago and got some play as a true freshman, had a couple games that he stepped in and looked impressive. Another guy that I believe sort of fits the mold of what they're looking for, 6'1", 190, not massive size, but again, a little bit bigger. Jamrock Grimsley is definitely interesting, 6'2", 200, so a little bit of a bigger guy. At 200 pounds, I mean, you almost wondered, is that a guy that you look at playing safety eventually for you? He is someone that was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. Everybody wanted him. Signs with Alabama and enrolled early there going at the start of 2024. Well, what happens in that winter period? Nick Saban retires. So Grimsley was released of his letter of intent, goes in the portal, transfers to Florida, back to his home state. Doesn't play his first year in 2024. and then, or I think dealt with injuries. That's what it was. 2024 dealt with injuries, didn't really get to play, had to deal with some things. Comes back last year with healthy, ready to go, but clearly was a little bit behind. And I've mentioned this a few times. If you remember that shot play to Anthony Evans to kind of open up the Florida game, it was Jamrock Grimsley who was in coverage. Now, hey, covering Ant Evans is very difficult one-on-one. There's no shame in getting beat by Ant, but a guy that the potential is there, but definitely still has to grow. But if that's a guy you're talking about as potentially your number 4 corner, that's not a bad spot to be in. Like, that's a good, like a very talented, high ceiling guy. And then you get Kyle Johnson. How far along has he come after being a 4-star signing? And you mentioned some of the other freshmen. There's depth in this corner room where I think the ceiling for them to be this year is, like, again, one of the top duos in the SEC. But I think even after Kelly Jones, I'm not saying any of those guys are going to be the next Kelly Jones, but I kind of think you look at going to next year and you would still think, assuming you got these guys on the roster, they're probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, especially with, I mean, if Jamrock Grizzly progresses, Kyle Johnson progresses, Caleb Singleton, and then maybe the talented true freshman Terrell Johnson, he continues that big rise. So, yeah, State is kind of underrated with the corners, with how many that we can produce. And we're as State fans, we're used to having just 2 corners that we're going into the season, and then end of the season, okay, one of these guys is going to get drafted. So they're going to get tested early, and often with the amount of receivers that they're going to see. So we'll definitely know with Jet Jefferson and Kelly Jones. But yeah, it's not a group that I'm worried about if something happens with Kelly Jones or Jet Jefferson, that I'm confident some of the younger guys can step up and at least be a solid, average SEC caliber corner.
Yeah, so again, this is a group that, again, this time a year ago, we had massive questions about corner. Half the question got answered with Kelly Jones. Now we feel like going into 2026 that the full question has been answered, and it's a group that we're expecting to be a strength for Mississippi State in 2026. Now, going elsewhere in the secondary, we'll talk about the Bulldogs safety group. And this is kind of an interesting room where you have a clear top dog returning, and then it's a lot new because you had so much overturn everywhere else, where guys like Braylon Womack, Jerron Manning, Hunter Washington, a name that State fans will always love, guys that played a lot, played major roles for Mississippi State over the past few seasons. Obviously, Manning was just a one-year thing. But guys that are off. And I think we're solid players for State, but not guys that are necessarily impact guys. Manning was pretty solid. He was a pretty solid piece for them on the back end. But guys that you looked at and said, okay, you need to get some veteran safeties to step in. You need guys who can fill those roles, but they're not irreplaceable pieces for them in the way that I think, Isaac Smith, maybe not having a contingency plan for him this year, that'd be tough to go out and find that type of a guy. But we can find guys to put around him. They've done that well with some of the transfers that they have coming in. And then we already have comments coming up about Braylon Womack. You also go out and signed an elite high school prospect in Braylon Womack, your biggest signing day win. I will call him a 5-star because that's what he was when he committed to Mississippi State. A 5-star safety who could have gone anywhere in the country. Flip him from Auburn into someone that's already made an impact as a true freshman throughout the preseason or the offseason, getting ready for this year, going to play a role for State. There's a good mix of talent and experience in this room that I think gives you confidence State's going to be pretty good at safety.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Marcus Williams, Rice transfers really out of the big 3 guys. I'll mention the other 3 big transfers when Jordan Gilbert and Kendall Dobie. Marcus Wilson, he is coming from Rice, but he had a really good season at Rice. He is the only one out of those big 3 that doesn't have SEC experience, but he still is a very great player. 67 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 5 pass defendants. And, he's definitely – I see as a guy that's come in and have a big role or even be a starter. Jordan Gilbert, he started his career at A&M and then went to LSU. He's played in a lot of games, played in 42 games, started 24. His best 2 seasons statistically was in 2022 and 2024. 61 tackles and two INTs, 4 pass defendants in 2022, and then 52 tackles and 1 interception in 2024. Didn't really get a lot of playing time at LSU, but is still a guy that has a lot of SEC experience. He's been at A&M, he's been in LSU, so if he's good enough to play in those type of secondaries, there should be no problem for him at least just being a solid contributor in our secondary. And then
I did want to say real quick, he did have a lot of playing time in 2024.
Oh yeah, that's what I said.
They kind of recruited over him, but yeah.
And then the one who's probably the most talented out of the three is Kendall Dobie from OU. I mean, he was a highly recruited JUCO guy, and he came in off the rip and was starting. He's just had dealt with a lot of injuries. Yeah, he's just dealt with a lot of injuries. Made 7 starts for that talented OU defense in 2023. It's just is he fully healthy from those injuries? But if he is, he's going to be. Has like all SEC star potential. So yeah. And then Braylon Womac's interesting. I mean, he's got to be the highest signing in the Levy era. What 5-star, 4-star, 97 on composite score on 247.
He'd be up there for sure.
I know when I was tracking his recruitment, he was getting early on. He was getting Caleb Down comps, but now it's Xavier Watts. But still, too. I mean, super talented safeties. I mean. And one of the big things about him, where I think I know he's definitely going to play, but one of his big strengths is, I know he was playing in the MAIS at Hartfield Academy, but one of his big strengths is just his man-to-man coverage skills. Like there were stocks for him. He was getting recruited by some schools to play corner. So yeah, there's definitely a guy that with this aggressive Arnett defense is, if those man-to-man skills can translate from that lower level to the SEC, he's definitely going to be a big asset for us. I mean, he's already. They got him listed at 6'1", 210, so he's put on good weight. He's already got SEC size. And then some of the other guys, Dre Riley, another JUCO guy, and then Kobe Barrett, Terrence Love, and Tavius Watts. And then with Isaac Smith, Tanner Johnson, and Boogie Johnson. So yeah, it's definitely safety is definitely. I mean, it's a great mix of talent and then experience.
Well, and the name you didn't mention there, because we talked about him a little bit at the corner, Quentin Taylor.
Yeah.
Everything we've heard is that he has made the move over, and I think the expectation is a little bit of a bigger guy than some of the other corners. I think that's probably why they made the move. They also may just be needing guys that they think are better cover players, and probably going to play a nickel corner type role for Mississippi State. So be someone that I think the way Arnett aligns his defense would probably play more to the field side. So that would be away from the hash that they're on, just where you have more space you have to work in. And kind of you see him go against slot receivers, I would guess. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like that's the role he's going to have there, which, if nothing else, though, he's got some position versatility where if you need to kick him outside a corner, you can do that. But they're clearly working him as a safety, which he was actually listed as a safety recruit coming out of high school. And I believe he's like the nephew of an NFL safety. So has some good bloodlines there to play that type of role. But as you mentioned, was impressive as a redshirt freshman for Iowa State last year, and a guy that could definitely have a bigger role within the state defense this season, now stepping into the safety spot. Gilbert is a guy that I've seen just to kind of describe. I think Gilbert might be the next Hunter Washington, as far as I can tell, where it's like, and state fans aren't going to like that. But what I mean by that is a guy that has just been around, played a lot of football, usually will do his job, knows where he needs to be. But in terms of him being the guy that you want covering one-on-one, in terms of him being the guy that, you're going to trust to make a bunch of big-time plays down the field, that's probably not where he is. But a guy that can just handle his role, go make tackles, and be a guy in space, kind of fills that role. I think he's probably going to play more to the boundary. It kind of sounds like he a little bit of a bigger guy that can, might see him go up against some tight ends, but play to that shorter side of the field. Williams is a guy that I've read up just at Rice, kind of rotated between playing sort of as a deep middle field safety role, but also played some nickel at Rice, which obviously, what does that look like at the American Conference versus playing in the SEC? Maybe is a little bit different, but can probably play that deep middle of the field player type role for them. Dolby's the interesting one and how he's going to be. I mean, as you mentioned, he had a really great start to his career in 2023 for Oklahoma. 49 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, 4 passes broken up, 2 interceptions.
7 games.
That was 13. He played a full season that year.
2023?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was okay, never mind. I know he got hurt pretty early 2024.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I saw 7 starts at. Okay.
I couldn't tell you. He might have only had 7 starts.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. I already say that 7 starts. They did kind of ease him in.
but he had a big role. It was just a guy that was playing all over the field. Really used him mostly as like a hybrid linebacker type guy, similar to the way that State would use an Isaac Smith. And I kind of think you probably see him be the guy to back up Smith. I could be wrong there because, this defense, like the hybrid player versus some other defense is a little different. For Arnett, it's the middle safety. So it's that guy in the middle of the field who's coming down to the box. Other teams use that as the nickel guy, and I think for Brent Venables, he kind of uses it as the nickel corner as the hybrid guy. So I think Dolby was in that hybrid role there as a nickel. I would imagine for State, he would be the middle safety, backing up Isaac Smith, but we'll see where he can be. But really effective as a pass rusher, big-time tackler, very good tackler in space. Like, that's one of those guys, like you see a swing pass out of the backfield, he's going to rock that running back, which you need the safety to be able to step up and do. Man, if he's healthy, and look, he's missed 2 years. He's played 7 games in the past 2 seasons. But if he's back healthy, that'd be really exciting. And he talked about Womack. Again, I think you're I think the role Marcus Williams has is kind of the same role you're looking at there, where you're going to use him both as a deep middle of the field player. And I think as a freshman, that's probably the role you want him in. Just let him use his athleticism, ball tracking, go find the football from that deep middle role. But as you mentioned, some man coverage skills as well, which if we go back to Zach Arnett defenses previously, where they would get got is when Zach Arnett would go super aggressive and we have our safety matched up with Malik Neighbors, and that matchup would go the way you would expect it to. Which, look, hey, it's not really unique to Arnett. Sometimes you're going to get a safety matched up on a great receiver. That's what happens. That's just the reality. But State lacked guys previously in those safety rooms who were the good coverage players one-on-one. It feels like they've got that this year. We haven't really talked about Isaac Smith. That's the one thing here is you have a third-year returning starter, senior player, was recruited to play in this defense, who I think is going to be in for a really big year. He took a nice step forward as a coverage player last year, but we know as a tackler, as a guy that can play both, get him down to the box, drop to the middle of the field, and kind of rotate between those roles, and then get him up on the edge and use him as a pass rusher. He's got the talent that really fits this defense well. I think Isaac Smith, I don't think he's going to match the tackles he did as a true freshman, but I think Isaac Smith's going to have the best all-around year of his career playing for Zach Arnett.
Yeah, especially being just recruited specifically for this defense. Former blue chip guy, really talented, really athletic. I think I know last year he was playing kind of more of a linebacker role. He put on a lot of weight. So maybe I haven't seen anything about him maybe losing weight and getting back to maybe being that field safety more coverage wise. But yeah, I can definitely see him taking maybe, like you said, he had 127 tackles, which is ridiculous from a safety position. Hopefully he doesn't get to that, but I definitely can see him making just more coverage plays and being used as a pass rusher more, especially in this Zach Arnett defense, and how he's really good with disguising. I feel like, I know you mentioned Kendall Doby, maybe his backup, but it seems like the best route they got to go is just get the 3 most talented safeties on the field any way possible. So maybe if we see that tandem of Womack playing more of the deep guy, then Doby and Isaac Smith still on the field, I think that would be very advantageous for us, especially if Doby's very healthy.
That's true. You don't have to pencil them into any one given role. You can definitely move guys around, and it feels like they have enough guys with versatility in their skill sets as well that, to your point of just find your best 3 and roll with it, that's definitely a possibility for them. But it sounds like they got 6 guys that you can roll out there. So at corner, you feel like they've probably got 4 to 5 they can go with, and they can probably roll 6. Plus, Tanner Johnson played for them a lot last year, had some flash moments, and then you can see if any of the younger guys or JUCO guys that they brought in can step up and play a role. The secondary for them is a case of, it's not just they have the top end players and they've got the experienced guys. And what I like about the safety group specifically is just having guys who have played a lot of football outside of Womack. Safety is one of those spots where a lot of it does come down to just understanding what you're reading from the offense and where I need to go. It's not always a spot where raw athleticism is enough to get by. They've got veterans who have been here and done that, and that's huge. But what I was getting at with the secondary as a whole is just they've got the depth is very good. And I think, the secondary, they can roll bodies. Linebacker, they can roll bodies. I think they can roll bodies at defensive line too. It's just a matter of, do you have enough guys that are truly special?
Mm-hmm.
But there's been so many questions about Arnett playing this aggressive style of defense, and but they have to be able to keep up with that, and with the tempo, and do they have the depth? I think the depth on defense is pretty strong.
Yeah, that's definitely. Maybe can question the D line, but it still seems like at least they have just enough bodies to rotate in. We know what they have at linebacker. We've already talked about what they got at secondary. So yeah, depth isn't really a question. It's just, there's some picking up the scheme, and then Arnett just still being aggressive and rolling with that. So yeah, definitely, I think we're into a much improved State defense. Maybe not back to top 20 like back in Arnett's heyday, but definitely going to be much improved in my opinion.
So that will conclude positional previews for the 2026 season. We were able to get through all of them here early in the year. So if you missed any of them, go back, check out the episode. If you need to go into or you can go one by one. We have them up on the YouTube channel, clipped out individually if there's a group you want to get shored up on. But yeah, that's a positional previews. And special teams preview, I'll do it now before I do the ad. Kyle Ferry's going to be your kicker. Ethan Pulliam's going to be your punter. I don't know who's going to be the long snapper because I don't know the last time I can name a State long snapper. There's a couple I could have named, but it's been a bit. You're probably, if those two guys can both be really good, and State's got a bunch of guys who can return kicks, it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to let them return kicks.
Yeah.
That about cover it?
Yeah, good.
I think that does it. No offense to the other third of the game.
Yeah, maybe mention Ferry and Pulliam's getting a lot of preseason award watch list. So maybe, yeah.
All right. If you want to have the most stylish fashion possible come college football season, go check out the Voice of College Football merchandise store. We have the classic dad hat, that camo trucker hat, the other trucker hat, heavyweight tee with that beautiful maroon color. We got the unisex t-shirt, the polo, sweatshirt when it gets colder, game day mug, can cooler, and tumbler. Also, while no Mississippi State represented a bunch of different teams across the country, available with some team-specific merchandise. If, again, you'd like to rep those teams, or I guess you wouldn't like to rep those teams as a Bulldog fan, but you got a friend that you know is a fan of another program, well, go get him a gift wearing one of these other colors while, again, repping the Voice of College Football brand. So rep the top college football social media network for the college football season here in 2026. I believe we do still have enough time. We can get into are we good to get into team previews here?
Yeah, I'll try not to be too long, but I'll be as in-depth as possible.
We'll try to run through these quicker than we did last time. And that's something we struggled with previously, was we got a little bit too in-depth. But we want to start State's November slate. We want to go ahead and get into the first two games State's going to play in the month of November against Vanderbilt and Auburn, two very pivotal games for Mississippi State in terms of reaching their goals for the season. We wanted to try to knock those out now. So we can get that started now, and we'll start with the Vanderbilt Commodores. And that's the team that I've got here. And Vanderbilt coming off the best season in school history, 10 wins for the first time ever, Heisman finalist quarterback in Diego Pavia. Clark Lee has that program in a really good spot, and it feels like what some of what they've done from a recruiting standpoint, what they've done in the portal, just the overall excitement around the program, they're setting themselves up for a golden age potentially for Vanderbilt football moving forward. That said, this does look like it could be a little bit of a reset year because of how much they're losing. Vanderbilt is 106th in returning production. As I talked about returning production earlier, so those numbers are not always fully accurate. And Vandy may be a team that kind of applies there, but a lot of pieces gone from this roster for sure, notably the quarterback in Pavia. SP Plus, though, still fairly confident in the doors being solid. 31st in preseason SP Plus with a win total of 6.5. Their win total over on FanDuel, 5.5. And obviously the biggest question with this team is who takes over for Diego Pavia, and the expectation is quarterback Jared Curtis, 5-star freshman, the highest-rated signing in program history right there out of Nashville, a guy that they beat out Georgia to get. Kind of a clear example of Vanderbilt spending some money that they may not have been back in the past. But this guy's a really special talent. 6'3", 230, so really well built. Powerful arm. He's a good runner, both as a scrambler, but you can use designed quarterback run game with him. Good playmaking ability, but also some maturity as a passer when you read the scouting report on, which you expect that with a 5-star. These guys that It's not just the arm talent. It's being able to work through things and know where to go with the ball. He's already displayed some of that and had a really big spring for Vanderbilt, had a great spring game. It sounds like he's been able to continue that for them. Technically, he's not been named the starting quarterback. There is a battle with Blaise Berlowitz, and it feels like there's no hand being tipped here that Berlowitz is still very much has a chance to win the job. I think the expectation, though, is if Curtis is not the week 1 starter, I bet he starts by the time Vanderbilt comes to Mississippi State in the start of November. So I think State's going to see a Jared Curtis versus Kamario Taylor battle in Starkville. The ceiling on Curtis is massive, and it's the highest ceiling they've probably ever had for a player. It's higher than Pavia. The question is, can he as a true freshman bring them what Pavia was able to bring them these past 2 years and sort of just willing them to wins and being that just gamer, go out, make stuff happen. And a guy that we could say what we will about Pavia's personality, clearly a guy that though was able to rally the troops and get his team fired up to go out to go to war for him every single week. How well can Curtis handle that in year 1 is going to be sort of the big question. There are some guys back, though, that are talented players. Cedric Alexander at running back last year ran for 567 yards on 5.4 yards per carry, 11 rushing touchdowns to go along with 200 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. So a good receiving threat out of the backfield, very good, talented running back. Obviously hasn't put up the big numbers, although he had 15 touchdowns last season. But obviously Pavia has taken a ton of carries from him, plus they've got a good rotation at running back as well. Junior Sherrill at receiver, 54 catches for 784 and 7 touchdowns last year. Also had 1 touchdown on the ground. He was the number 2 wideout for them, big play threat returning for this offense, and is going to be the top receiver this year. And on defense, I could have gone with a few different guys, but we'll go with linebacker Brian Longwell. Led the team with 71 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 4 quarterback hurries, and an interception. So a guy kind of doing a little bit of everything there in the middle of the field. Had to bring in several new pieces, though. Wide receiver Ja'Cory Thomas comes over from Old Dominion. We're playing in a veer and shoot offense. Caught 41 passes for 719 yards, 5 scores. Bigger body guy, vertical speed on the outside. Bo Johnson was an FCS All-American offensive tackle for North Dakota State. Was a left tackle for the Bison, and now comes up to Vanderbilt and is going to have to play a key role for them because they lost 4 starters up front of that offensive line, including both of their tackles. Now, I believe it was both their tackles. I think it's a guard that they have coming back. I could be wrong there, but he's going to be one of their guys at tackle. I have not specified left or right tackle because Vanderbilt does not use left or right tackles. For a little weirdness here, they play they have their strong guard and strong tackle, and they have their quick guard and quick tackle. They flip their linemen throughout the game based on the run concept. A very old school football thing that Vanderbilt applied. It's kind of neat. It's been beneficial for them. But regardless of whether Johnson is the strong or the quick tackle, he's going to be one of those guys for them. They need him to step up, protect on one side of the field. And their top portal get, safety Ricardo Jones comes over from Clemson, where he was an all-ACC player, 39 tackles and 6 interceptions a season ago. So a good piece for them in a secondary that does need a little bit of a boost. Their strength offensively, I expect to be the run game. Alexander, I've mentioned, but McKylan Young is a good running back behind him who was very productive. They've got some young guys they like there. Plus, regardless of who wins the quarterback job, whether it's Curtis or Berlowitz, both those guys can run a little bit. And then I mentioned, it's a new look offensive line, but what they do in the run game. Tim Beck is an outstanding play caller. They use a lot of motion, misdirection, option run schemes. That helps you run the football, even if you're not the strongest up front. I think they're going to run the football effectively. The weakness or the question is that offensive line, though, because you do have the 4 new starters. And while the scheme is going to help them a lot, replacing 4 starters on the line is not easy to do. And you got some guys transferring up, got some guys that are former highly rated recruits that haven't done anything. Do have a 2-year starting center from Pittsburgh that's coming in who can help. But just how does that group mesh together? That's a real question for them, especially when you got a true freshman quarterback up in front. I would also add some of the receiving talent that they lost is notable. No more Eli Stowers at tight end. Trey Richardson transferred to Louisville, who was their top receiver a season ago. They don't have as many clear options at receiver as they did last year, so that there are some weapons gone from this team. Defensively, the strength, I would say, is just the back 7 as a whole. At least the starting unit looks solid. I talked about Brian Longwell, but Nicholas Rinaldi is a good pass rushing linebacker that they have. Martell Height is a pretty good cornerback 1. CJ Hurd's an impact safety, and then obviously added Ricardo Jones. The caveat here, where, again, I'm talking about a lot of guys in the back seven, their pass defense sucked last year. Like, the teams were able to throw all over them. So they're bringing a lot of guys back, added a good piece to that secondary, Ricardo Jones, who clearly they need some guys who can help back there. But how much better is their pass defense when they did have a pretty good pass rush last year? It's not like they weren't able to get pressure on quarterbacks and guys were asked to cover forever. They weren't great. Speaking of pass rush, though, D-line is a spot that is a question for this defense. So they have two of their main starters back. Miles Capers at edge is their top returning pass rusher. And then defensive tackle Glenn Seabrooks, just a big old space eater guy in the middle. Then you get a guy back at defensive tackle, Yilinan Watara, and I've totally butchered that name, was supposed to be a starter for them last year, was a returning starter from 2024, missed basically all of that. I think got hurt in the season opener. It was done for all year. He's back. They're very high on him. They've said he's had a really good offseason. Those guys could be a solid starting group. Everything else, though, they're losing a lot, and it's just not very proven. Brian Allen's a transfer defensive end who was a four-star transfer from Iowa, but has not been super productive throughout his career. What type of impact can he have? They got a transfer from Jacksonville State along the interior that they're hoping to step up. A transfer edge from Boston College that they need to be a good player for them. Last year, they were able to rotate bodies really well, though, up front. And that included the linebackers where they were able to rotate there. This year, it's more of a question, do they have the guys to do that from a unit that last year was fine, but it wasn't dominant? So defensively, it's kind of a mix of having some guys back plus a lot of new pieces. I think the starting unit looks solid, but I don't know how many impact guys they have. That's kind of the question for them. So this is a game that State opens up with November against a Vanderbilt team that has a lot of new pieces. But, Alex, this is a Vanderbilt team that even if they are starting a new era, it's kind of a reset year, and State kind of needs to get this game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And like you said, with Jared Curtis starting, I mean, he is super talented. I mean, I watched some of his, even though he was playing at a lower level, a competition level, it's just, I mean, talent is talent. He was doing whatever he wanted at that lower level. And just from, I know a Vandy guy, and he was saying that he's picked up the offense very, very quickly. I mean, he was training for Vandy for a long time. So even during the season, there was talks with how they're going to change the offense to better fit his skill set. I think one of his coaches, maybe one of his head coach at the high school was meeting with Tim Beck, and they were helping design the offense mesh with his skill set. So I definitely think he's probably going to be the week one starter. But like, it's going to be interesting to see just his development to when he gets to State. I mean, it's going to be later in the season. Maybe he is showing those flashes and he's not really technically a true freshman quarterback, but I still think with the confusion that Arnett can cause, that can cause him some trouble just seeing that. So it is, there's interesting. They are bringing like you said, it is kind of a reset year. And then, I mean, they are kind of getting a lot of hype with Jared Curtis. So it's definitely a game that, I mean, definitely going to be a big game for us if we want to accomplish the goals and we have the season that we want to have. And it's definitely just with some of their weaknesses, it's mirroring a lot of weaknesses in the SEC in this new age that is definitely things that we can take advantage of. And just having, especially just with a first-year starting quarterback, you just really never know, I mean, how his development is going to be. He's got the talent, but, I mean, facing a defense as aggressive as Arnett can definitely cause some problems.
Yeah, and, I look at this team, and there's part of me that doesn't – like – I always would get annoyed when Mississippi State would have a good year and then the next year, well, they're just not getting any bit of the doubt, even if they brought some guys back. And, like, I don't want to do that to Vanderbilt where I'm just assuming they're going to fall off the face of the earth. Although in my preseason projections, just the way it worked out, I kind of had them falling back deep. And, like, I offensively, like, I love Tim Beck. I think he's a great play caller. They've got a few skill guys that I like. And then Curtis, you're right. The skill is super high. But then it's like, man – your two best weapons in the receiving core, really your two best skill players, and Richardson and Stowers are gone. You lose 4 offensive linemen. That's a lot to replace. Mm-hmm. And then, your Heisman finalist quarterback, greatest player in school history, who kind of is the reason Vanderbilt probably had enough roster talent to be a bowl team last year. They won 10 games because they had Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
And I know Curtis is super talented. And look, if he's the week one starter, at this point, he'll have 2 months of starting experience under his belt. But, man, that's a lot to replace. I talk about SP+. I think they were like the number 5 offense in SP+ last year.
Yeah.
Or like they were easily top 10. There's no way you're replicating that this season. Like, you could be a top 30 offense, and that's still a big drop-off from where you were. And I think there's a chance they fall more than that. So, I mentioned, like, the receiving core. Some of what I've heard is, like, some of the new guys that have stepped in as receiving options have not been super impressive to this point. Like, so, like, what is this offense ultimately going to be? Like, I think they're going to take a big step back there. And defensively, we could do the same thing here to Mississippi State, where it's like, hey, there's a lot of guys back, but how good are they truly? But, like, I know Kelly Jones is a difference maker. I know Isaac Smith is a difference maker. Like, there's a couple guys in the back end I feel really, really good about. We've talked about the potential of some of the guys in that front seven, and we think the linebackers are going to take off playing for Arnett. Obviously, I'm sure there's people who cover Vanderbilt and have a closer eye on that Vanderbilt program that could say a lot of the same things. No, this guy's about to break out, be a star. But I look at a lot of the Vanderbilt defense, and I just see a lot of guys that's like, okay, they're okay. Like, I think their defense will be fine. I think they're expecting this to be the best defense that they have had in the Clark Lee era.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be a good enough defense that's winning them games? Maybe a couple, but I don't know. I think it's a defense that's going to be gettable once again. So I look at this game at Starkville, and I'm matching up the two teams. I think State's far more proven offensively. And I think defensively, you're probably talking about two similar type defenses ultimately if we think State's defense is as improved as we expect. Well, State's got the better offense, the clear advantage on one side, plus they're playing at home. I like that matchup for State. I think State's receivers can pose threats to that Vanderbilt receiving core. I think Kamario Taylor can neutralize some of what Vanderbilt might have up front, where, again, they kind of have some questions. And then on the other side, like, I don't think Vandy has enough weapons to really scare State. Yeah. The run game with Vandy and the option elements of it, that is a place where they could give State problems. If they really lean into we're running the shotgun triple option, that could give State some issues for sure, and they might score some points. But overall, I like the matchup for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't really gotten to conversations. I don't know how much. I mean, obviously the offense is not going to look the same with Diego like it was last year. There's going to be, I think it's going to be kind of a hybrid because they're eventually they're trying to implement more just spread concepts just to take advantage of Curtis's skill set. So, I mean, yeah, but I can still see them, if they're struggling or if the pass game is not going, just still morphing back to what their bread and butter is. And
that's my thing. I think with Curtis, the optimized version is that you get to the point where you're using the spread pass game more. Although Lavia sneakily had some games last year where, like, he was being a kind of a dude at quarterback a little bit, like from a passing standpoint. But I don't know that they have the receiving talent to do it. I don't know that they're going to have the pass protection to do it. And then he's a true freshman. Yeah, I think their best chances of making the offense work are probably going to be around the run game heavily. So we'll see how it works. But it's an important game for State, but we kind of like that matchup for the Bulldogs to open up November after a really brutal October stretch. The next game for Mississippi State, the Auburn Tigers, year one for Alex Golesh on the Plains, taking over for Hugh Freeze, an Auburn team that has not had a winning season since 2020. This program, they've not completely collapsed. They haven't had a single horrid year, although I guess by their standards they would say that they've been horrid. But it's just been a lot of really frustrating type teams that have a lot of talent, play a lot of competitive games, including against a lot of really good teams that just have not been able to get over the edge. And now Golesh comes in. He brings Byron Brown and that offense with him, held on to G.J. Durkin to kind of keep a lot of the defense still in place. There's reasons for optimism in the Tigers. When you look at some of the preseason projections, SP Plus, from a returning production standpoint, they're 46th. And it's not so much because of the guys that they have coming back. It's because of the pieces that they have stepping in who have played a lot of football. And the projections for them, SP Plus projects them number 26 in the country. And also heavily expects them to go to a bowl, which, by the way, this is an interesting note. SP Plus, so he gives the percentage of a team winning 6+ games. Auburn is projected ahead of Mississippi State. Like Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky rounds up sort of the bottom in terms of likelihood of going to a bowl game. Auburn's just ahead. Auburn is given 74% chance of going to a bowl. Mississippi State is given, per SP Plus, less than a 22% chance of going to a bowl. And that was, again, one spot versus the next. Yeah. Very interesting to me how much the metrics, like a lot of these other teams within the SEC. But Auburn projected win total per SP Plus of, 6.5. That is also their win total according to FanDuel, 6.5. Interesting team. Alex, what do we need to know about the Tigers?
Yeah, very interesting team. I mean, they just fired Hugh Freeze, and his biggest problem or his biggest gripe with Auburn was just the offense. It's just never really had a consistent offense. Bringing Alex Golesh, who, I mean, he was at Tennessee. He was at Tennessee with Heupel, and that first season, was it a first season or in 2021? Yeah, during that 2021 season, they set like 8 single season records. For what points, total yards, touchdowns, points after touchdowns made, first downs, rushing first downs, passing efficiency, and then they improved their scoring 101 spots from 2020 to 2021, and then in 2022 they scored 46 points per game. So yeah, definitely one of those fits the mold of the offensive guru types. Runs a similar. I mean, I'm not really big on the offensive concepts, but like I think you mentioned, he kind of runs a similar offensive levy, maybe a more pure version at Tennessee, but it's kind of morphed a little bit different at USF. Went to USF, and I mean, he had them at one of their best runs of their whole career. I mean, we saw last year and then the year before how they were given like really good teams or really more talented teams like Auburn and actually beating Florida like trouble. So yeah, it's definitely. And then, like last year at USF, there was a number 3 offense in the country in terms of total yards, had 489 yards per game, number 5 in points, 40.5 per game, and he's big on tempo. Obviously, quarterback Byron Brown, who's been in that system, has been very effective in that system. Other returning players to watch to try to focus on players that was at Auburn before. Xavier Atkins is their all-star linebacker. I mean, one of the top linebackers in the country. 84 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. Very great player. Started his career at LSU and then just had a great season last year in that DJ Durkin offense. Running back Jeremiah Cobb had 969 rushing yards on 175 carries. Definitely can see him taking a big jump with Byron Brown, like being a threat for his legs. So they have a lot of interesting pieces on that offense. Golesh brought 11 players over from USF and then a lot of the stars. With them hiring Golesh, they did lose a lot. I mean, their receivers just kind of underrated with how much talent they had in that receiver room. I don't think people realize. I mean, lost Cam Coleman, and you've talked about some people think Cam Coleman could have a year and be picked higher than J.J. Smith. Lost that talented transfer in Eric Singleton, who was, I mean, amazing speed. And then they lost another underrated guy in Malcolm Simmons. So, yeah, they're replacing all those receivers and then lost the young guys in Perry Thompson, who will play in Minnesota. But, I mean, Golesh bought of the top 5 receivers he had in production from USF. He brought 4 of those over to Auburn. So, interesting to watch. Breakout players. They did bring in a transfer from Baylor, Bryson Washington, another running back. He had 154 carries, 788 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year. Him, Brown, and Cobb, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they just form one of the most dangerous rushing trios in the SEC. So that'll be something to watch for. Interesting, they did lose a lot on the O-line. I mean, they're probably the player who would, if he stayed, would have been their best tackle, Xavier Chaplin. He's gone. But another breakout player that I think is going to have a big role, it's already assumed that he's going to be the starter, Cole Best. He was a USF center, started the final 20 games. So really gave up 0 sacks in 2025. He did have 10 pressures, but he's improved every season he's been in that USF offense. They're definitely going to count on him a lot to bring the other 4 starters up to speed in that offense. And then Deshaun Womack, who's a transfer from Ole Miss. He was a former 5-star, super talented player, 6'5", 265 at that edge. They lost Kendrick Falk to the draft, and they're gonna be leaning on him to be a big time edge player. I mean, he started his career at LSU, and then he was at Ole Miss. Didn't start any games at LSU or Ole Miss. Was kind of like a part-time pass rusher. So his stats aren't really that much impressive, but he does have that pedigree. I mean, he played in 35 career games and has 7 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks. So he's definitely going to be one of those guys that they're expecting to make a big jump and being in a full-time role. I mean, he's super talented, former 5-star. Strengths in offense, I think their number one strength is their continuity in that offense from what they're bringing with the quarterback and then those receivers. I mean, I can list he brought 11 players. four of their top five pass catchers and Keyshawn Singleton, Jeremiah Koger, Chaz Nimrod, and Christian Neptune. They all make the move to Auburn. And then I can list off some of their stats, like just the type of production they're bringing. I mean, Singleton, he had 50 receptions, 877 yards, 8 touchdowns. Kroger, 38 receptions, 597, 8 touchdowns. Nimrod, 23 receptions, 468, 3 touchdowns. And then Neptune, 38 receptions, 335, and another touchdown. So, I mean, most of, like you said, their top 5 receivers at USF, 4 of them are in that offense, and it's going to be big on that continuity. And, like, all the questions is going to be O-line. I mean, they lost a lot to the transfer portal, especially on that O-line. Cole Best is definitely probably penciled in as a starter. They did bring some transfers in. James Madison transfer, Joe Simmons. He's probably going to be one of the starting tackles. And then they brought an Oregon State tackle who's kind of more of a depth piece. One of their big-time transfers, Stan Ramil from Michigan State. He's dealing with injuries. Okay. So he's probably going to have a role. He's going to be playing just until Stan Ramil, he gets kind of healthy, and then he's going to assume that starting position. But, their O-line, Auburn's O-line was not good, especially in pass pro last year. So that is, like, all the other teams we talk about, that's going to be that's their biggest weakness on offense. Defense, I mean, their defense did actually lose a lot, and I was surprised, like, how much they lost. But, I mean, they do have some talented guys. I mean, linebacker room is definitely going to be their biggest linebacker room is definitely the biggest strength with Xavier Atkins, but they still have also other guys with, like, DeMarcus Riddick. He's another experienced player. He did miss a lot of last season dealing with a shoulder injury, but they do expect big things out of him coming up. They also have Elijah Mendez, who's another guy. He's extremely talented. He's like a freak athlete in that linebacker room. He hasn't started a single game yet, but they're still expecting him to make a big drop. With the cornerback position, they do return a lot of production, especially at safety, mostly at safety. They have Eric Winters, Sylvester Smith, and then Anquan Fegans are back at safety with Harris. Harris is another guy that I think is going to be a starter. They did also bring in a USF safety in Fred Gaskin, who started a lot of games at USF. He's more as a box type player. And then, but they're losing both of their starting corners. Jay Crawford, he went to Ole Miss, and then Caden Lee, he went to Tennessee. They did bring Rashawn Pleasance in from Tulane. He's a very talented player. He's already been penciled in at that CB1 spot. And they added a UCLA transfer in Audrey Jordan, who was, I don't think he was very highly rated in that transfer class, but there's been a little hype about him. They think he's very underrated. Another question mark kind of is D-line. I mean, they have talented players. They have a former 5-star Malik Autry, who he's played a little bit, but they're expecting a big jump in him. And then they're really relying on, they lost, like, big-time edge player in Kendrick Falk, so they're really relying a lot on Deshaun Womack to really kind of replace that production. So, defense, they did lose a lot, but there is talent in that secondary and in the linebacker room, and then it's with DJ Durkin. He's done a pretty good job at just having at least a decent defense. It seems like last year they had a really good defense in his style. So, it is one of those teams where it's like I wouldn't be surprised either way how they could go. It could be a total disaster, or they could end up being a playoff team, just especially with the continuity they're bringing back on their offense. So that's going to be big. Like, if they can find the right pieces in that O-line, I wouldn't be surprised if that offense is getting off to a great start, off and running. Just continue what they did at USF. They've shown that, they beat Florida. It was an ugly game, and that did show some of kind of the weaknesses of just what Golesh does with that tempo, how if they're getting a lot of 3-and-outs, and it does give the offense another opportunity on the other side to, like, take advantage of that. But, even if that happens, I can still see some games where even if they're getting a lot of 3-and-outs and the defense is on the field for a long time, just the way Durkin plays that defense, they could still win a lot of games like that. But, the big thing is offense with them. That's going to be the big key. If their offensive line is just right, I can see them giving us a problem, especially if that running game's hidden and then Byron Brown's hitting those deep shots.
Yeah, you mentioned the offense. You talked about them playing Florida. And, yeah, they went into that game, and Byron Brown had a great game, made a lot of big plays, kind of willed them to a win against a pretty good Florida defense. For as much as Florida struggled last year, Florida defensively was a pretty solid team. They still scored like 19 points in that game.
Yeah.
And like on the road, get it, and the Swamp's a very difficult place to play. But there's part of me, and like they hit big plays. It was like they had some plays down the field. They had a couple big runs that weren't Byron Brown scrambles. This offense is always going to find ways to get a couple big plays. We all obviously at this point know this offense well. There's still part of me that goes back to that game, and it's like, yeah, they found a few explosives, but they didn't have guys running free all day. They also weren't able to – they got whipped up front. Like, Brown kind of had to do everything on his own. And then they played Miami, and it was sort of the same outcome against an even better defense, an elite defense.
Was he gone when they played Tulane, or was that the champ game or in the regular season? Because Tulane whipped them. I should look that up.
North Texas is who played in the championship game against Tulane.
So when did they play? Oh, no, never mind. I'm thinking of –
They lost to Memphis.
I'm thinking of
Navy.
I'm thinking of 2024 when they played, when Tulane just – because it's still like when they played those better teams, it was just that the problem with the tempo arose where they're just getting a lot of 3-and-outs, and the offense is not really – I mean, there's some big plays, but, I mean, with that tempo and how fast they're getting off the field, it's just causing problems for their offense to really get in rhythm.
Yeah, so they scored 18 on Florida, had under 391 yards, over 6 yards of play, which is solid. They scored 12 on Miami, had 332 yards. Against Boise, I remember that game. They put 34 on the board, but I think one of those touchdowns was on a fake punt. And that was a game early in that game. They could not move the football at all. That was a very good, talented Boise defense. There's a place I'm going with this. The rest of the year, they were pretty dang good until the bowl game. Offensively, they were fine, but they also didn't face anyone worth a crap defensively the rest of the year. There's part of me that wonders if, like, coming over, if this guys they're bringing, they're relying on all the pieces, and the continuity is great. There's part of me that wonders how much can those guys really cut it in the SEC? But it's really the O-line thing. Like, I think they've probably got the skill talent. The O-line part of it, like, we've seen it. That's a struggle. Now, Brown is a better quarterback than State's had. I'm also, at this point, just going to trust. There's part of me that just wonders if Mississippi State's coaching staff just hasn't had what it needs to be from an offensive line coaching standpoint. So maybe these other teams get it figured out quicker. But I sort of see a scenario where there's a real good chance Byron Brown's just sort of running for his life a lot and is having to carry that offense, which he might be able to do. The other side of the ball, I think they'll probably be fine defensively. But losing both starting corners, losing your top defensive lineman, that's tough. They had a defense that was good enough to keep them in every single game last year and, in theory, win them some games. It's just their offense was so brutally awful that you couldn't rely on the defense entirely. I think they're probably back to just being okay on defense this next year. I think they're going to be a better team. I think there's a chance for them to get to a bowl. And you're right. If the O-line clicks for them and all those guys transport over, even if they're just okay on defense, then we could see them take a big jump. But I think this is a game in Starkville again. Like, I think State can find ways to attack their defense because I don't think their D-line is going to be as scary, and I think the cornerback spot could be a question for them. And then I also think, going up against their offense, like, can Zach Arnett create a lot of confusion and havoc for Byron Brown? I think that's a real possibility. It's going to be a tough game, but I like State's chances.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, State and Auburn seems like, just from the talk, it's getting a little testy with that game. So, and they're a team that's just like, they're just desperate for winning or getting back to what they think they should be. So, yeah, I mean, they went and got an offensive guy. I mean, I don't know how well it's going to translate. I think you've mentioned this as like kind of a lot of more SEC teams have seen that type of offense, so they've kind of well adjusted to it. So it'd be interesting to see what that looks like in the SEC, and then having O-line problems and relying on, I mean, not keeping any of those talented receivers they had last year. I think it's safe to say that Malcolm Simmons, who I think was really talented, I think if he was still there, he would be their number one receiver easily.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely definitely a game that, I mean, I like our chances in too, but it's just still, honestly, you just never know, especially with Auburn. I mean, you really never know, but I mean, and then Byron Brown, I mean, just having that experience in that offense, we'll see. I don't really right now. I wouldn't say that I would think that he'd be able to carry that offense in SEC. I think teams will have better answers than he saw in the American. Even though I did see there's some talks of the American being better than the Big 12. We'll talk as a whole, but
It's not.
yeah, it's definitely. I've been seeing that a lot, but yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game with Byron Brown. But the O line just having in a brand new O line and like not having only one guy who's been in that offense. And I mean, it is a center. We're kind of similar with that, but I do feel like just with having guys with like had played at bigger programs or other guys that have been super talented that have been in the program, I think our O line is probably a little bit better on paper than them right now. So yeah, O line for them is going to be a big thing. And then, like you said, with their defense, I can definitely see their defense taking a step back. I mean, losing your top two corners, relying. I mean, Xavier Atkins still a hell of a player, but I mean, that's it takes more than that just to get back to like what they were last year.
Another big game for Mississippi State if they're going to have the type of season that they want to have. Before we get out of here, we do have breaking news that just came up. We get this shared. From Pete Thamel, Mississippi State has initiated the process of two key defenders returning to the roster for a fifth season per ESPN sources. And both edge rusher Malik Silla and safety Jerron Manning are back on campus and set to return. The availability has arisen from the district court ruling in Colorado. So Jeff Letty got asked about this at his press conference. I guess that would have been over the weekend or Friday, something like that. And he mentioned, they're looking at these things, but, just don't really know much just yet. Clearly, they're looking to bring these guys. Obviously, they were looking to bring these guys back. And that would be big. We talked about this earlier. We predicted it was not going to happen. Shows how much we know. Which, granted, I was going off of what people who are more connected than me were saying that don't count on anything. State's looking to bring these guys back to the roster, and getting Manning back, we talked about it's a new defense. Logistically, there's challenges here.
Yeah,
there's they have to learn new roles, and maybe we poo-pooed it a little bit too much this last time. Still, they're veteran players. You can find ways to get them integrated as quickly as possible. Having Manning back as another veteran option for them in the secondary would be big. Maybe you then look and say, okay, Quentin Taylor can play a little bit corner for us now. Maybe we don't need him in the safety room. So just having another veteran back there who was a good playmaker for State. The Silla one is the one that I'm excited about. Because while I wasn't blown away with him last year, I would have loved to have seen more actual sack production. He was still State's best pass rusher last year in terms of generating pressure. That is a spot where even if Amari Williams hits, what State has after Amari Williams is a huge question mark. Really, I mean, that spot's a question mark as a whole, but you have nothing proven from a depth standpoint. Getting Silla back gives you somebody that you've at least seen play in this conference and is capable of getting pressure on quarterbacks. This would be big for State if they get these guys back on the roster.
Yeah, for sure. The only concern would be just how in shape they are, how fast they can get in shape and get acclimated. I think it'll be a little bit easier for Silla to kind of be acclimated. Don't want to like this on the D-line, but that is probably usually an easier transition just for learning. Jerron Manning's an interesting one because, I did not expect him to be back because he signed technically 2 pro contracts, so I'm surprised they got him back. But, I'm not complaining with that one.
And again, not official yet. They're still working to make it happen. I'm not going to go and dive into anything as we're here live on the show right now. I'd imagine by the time we're back for Thursday's show, we'll have a full answer as to what's going to happen here. We're going to talk about it a little bit more thoroughly. But to close out the show, Mississippi State is looking to bring back 2 key pieces to their defense from last season thanks to these eligibility rules. That'd be big. If State's able to get those guys back, it would help them out quite a bit. That's going to do it for us this evening. As I mentioned, we'll be back Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll talk about the Egg Bowl, talk a little bit about Tennessee Tech. Did see today, a guy from CBS Sports today put out an article like most likely FCS over FBS upsets, and he listed Tennessee Tech over Mississippi State as a possibility. He did explain that the thought process is if Mississippi State He did say, like, I could see State having a good season, but if they're not having a good season and things have fallen apart, do they even care going into this game? And that's where Tennessee Tech, being an interesting team that, hey, won 11 games last year, could they jump up and beat it? Like, once I saw the explanation and he wasn't just blindly saying this is a bad football team and I think they're going to lose to an FCS team, I was like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I still don't see that happening. We'll talk a little bit of Tennessee Tech, though. But again, mostly we're going to look at the Egg Bowl, give our thoughts. We'll break down the Rebels, give our thoughts on the matchup, and just talk a little bit about what State has to do to get the Golden Egg back in Starkville just for another pivotal game. And, yeah, if there's anything else to get into, we'll do that as well. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, and for those of you in the live chat going back and forth with us, always fun to have that. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and have those notifications turned on. And we will see you all next time. As always, swing your sword and Hail State.